What's up everybody, welcome back to another Baldur's Gate 3 video. In today's video we are going to be going over a comprehensive build guide to a build I like to call the Bladesinger. Now the Bladesinger is a subclass in D&D 5e but is not in Baldur's Gate 3, so I made my own build your own kind of blade singing class, so that way you can have fun. And if you want to play like a battle mage type character but you don't want to go like paladin and warlock and that type of stereotypical route, then this video is for you. So without further ado, let's jump right in. All right, so now that we're in game, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through every single level, the whole progression route, everything. It's, like I said, it's going to be a comprehensive guide, so that way you know how to play this build from level 1 to level 12. There will also be timestamps below, so that way you can skip ahead. And really quick before we get started, I just want to say thank you guys so much for all the feedback on my last video. If you didn't see it, then there'll be a link down in the description, as well as the end of the video there's a little section that you can click on that. But this is going to be taking some of that advice that you guys gave me to help it be more comprehensive, and we're just going to be focusing on one build for this video. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm in a way to change class. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't got there, but there's a way that you can respec basically. So that's what I'm going to be doing right now. This character is level 11. They're not level 12, so I will be going over the level 12, but I won't be able to show you the level 12. This is just going to go over kind of the main build, so that way you still be able to get the information. So starting at level 1, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pick fighter. Okay, so the main reason why we want to go fighter for this build is because, especially at level 1, is because you get all the weapon and armor proficiencies, which is really nice. And also for the early game levels, we are going to be going levels 1 through 3 in fighter, and so going fighter first I feel like makes this build a lot easier to work with, and it's a lot easier to get through the early levels because fire is really front loaded. I prefer to go for 3 levels in fighter and then the rest into wizard for this build. Okay, so going fire level 1, fighting style, you do get a fighting style. Now there's a couple different options you can pick. This build is pretty universal. I'm going to go over the main way that I would play this build, and then I will point out if there's any other variations while we're going through this build, just to, if you want to try something else. So for this build, the things that we are going to be doing is we are going to be intelligence and dex based, and we want to have a really high AC as well as a good amount of either buff, damage, or utility spells, right? So we really want to encompass like trying to get as close to like a Bladesinger in Baldur's Gate 3 as we possibly can. And one of the things that they focus on is they're kind of like a tank. Actually, I know it sounds weird to have like a wizard, especially when it's just levels and wizard, as like a tank, but they're a tank through their incredibly high AC and not through like their raw hit points. So for me personally, that means that when we're going to pick a fighting style, there is 2 fighting styles that you can go with. The choice is up to you, and if you want to change this later, depending on where you're at in your progression, then you can. So the most obvious one in terms of fulfilling that theme of having like a really high AC and being incredibly hard to hit is defense, because it's like if you don't know what to go, then in terms of a fighting style, you're not sure what you want to play or what weapons you want to use, then defense is like the best one to go, because it like will always benefit you no matter what. I personally go defense. You just get a +1 bonus to your armor class while wearing armor. Again, fits that high AC, so that's where we're going to go. Now abilities, this is probably one of the hardest parts about the build, unfortunately, because of the fact that like we don't have actual blade singing, and we don't have a way in Baldur's Gate 3 to add our intelligence modifier to our attack rolls like we do in paper. So what we do is we're going to dump most of our stats. Again, this is for min-maxing. This is if you really want to min-max. You can allocate these as you see fit if you don't want to have negatives in anything, but personally what I would do is I would put my +2 in dexterity and then a +1 in intelligence, and then we'll bump dexterity up to 17, and then we're going to bump intelligence up to 15, and then the rest of these you can kind of float. When we get our first ability score improvement, we are going to bump both of these up. In terms of skill proficiencies, this is going to be personal preference on what you want to pick, but this is what level 1 is going to look like for you. So level 2, not much to say. You're going to increase in level, and then you're going to get action surge, which is really important, and one of the biggest parts of this build is the access to action surge. It can allow you to do some pretty insane things, and it's useful for any class, so it's really good. Let's move on up to level 3 now. So level 3, and I will shout out that you can, if you want to, with this build, only go 2 levels of fire just to get action surge and then the proficiencies, and then go straight wizard. However, I feel like going to level 3 with fighter for this specifically and getting like your subclass helps a little bit more, because all you really get as a wizard, and we're going to be going Evocation Wizard, by the way, and just like as a heads up. But all you really get if you have that extra level in Wizard is you get one more additional spell slot for the highest levels you can cast, which is, I believe, is level 4, or maybe it's level 5. But you go from 1 instead of 2, which is nice. Like, you can use that, but again, we are more focused on melee, so those spell slots aren't as important, but they are nice to have. And then for Evocation Wizards, you can add your int modifier to whatever like damaging spells are evocation based, which is also nice, but I don't think it gives you as much as getting like an actual subclass and then a little bit extra health for having one more level in fighter. And the subclass we're going to go is actually right here. It's the Battle Master. Now the reason why we go with the Battle Master is because it gives us more options in melee combat. And if you know anything about Battle Masters are insanely good. Their maneuvers and what makes a Battle Master like unique can make them really, really insane, because the maneuvers are really, really good. And at level 3 you have 4 superiority dice, which are all d8s, so you have a lot of options. So there is a lot of maneuvers that you can pick. You can pick whatever ones you want, but these are the ones that I would personally take. Okay, so the first die that I would personally take, or the first maneuver that I would personally take, is going to be Riposte. I really like Riposte because what this basically means is it gives you a reaction, and then whenever a hostile creature misses you with a melee attack, which we're going to have a really high AC, so that will be happening quite a bit, you can expend a superiority die to retaliate with a powerful strike that deals an additional 1d8 damage. So this is going to allow you to, per round, output a lot more damage, and if you want to use all of your superiority die on just this reaction, then you're still going to get really good damage out of it, and it allows you to be more of a menace in melee combat again, especially because we're going to have such high AC, so people are going to be missing a lot. The second one that I like to take is Trip Attack. I like Trip Attack a lot because of the fact that like you can knock, like it's not a guarantee, but it has range or a melee version, and you can knock the target prone as well as dealing that additional 1d8 damage. And this is really nice because when you do knock an enemy prone, you do gain advantage, so they're a lot easier to hit. They have to pick themselves back up, so it uses some of their movement speed, and knocking things prone in general in Baldur's Gate 3 is always advantageous for you. So I like taking this. It gives you a little bit more utility and a little bit more things to be able to do in melee combat, and it's always nice to have those options. Okay, so the third maneuver that we are going to take is Goading Attack. Goading Attack deals an additional 1d8, and you attempt to goad the target into attacking you, and then the target receives disadvantage on attacking any other creature. Again, because a Bladesinger is kind of like this front line AC tank, and we are going to have a really high AC, then opposing disadvantage and making it so like you're more the focus is really helpful for the rest of the party, so that way they can keep doing it and they don't have to worry about like their concentration spells being broken by being attacked and everything. And opposing that disadvantage onto like a target, like a key target, like a boss or something like that, is super, super helpful. And again, we don't mind putting all the aggro on us because we have such a high AC, and that's what we're supposed to be doing is as a frontline kind of battle mage type build anyway, that this for me is what is like my main option for picking as well. So these are the 3 options that I like to go with: the Goading Attack, the Riposte, and the Trip Attack. Again, if you see any others that you like or you want to try out, feel free. These are just my personal ones that I like using and the ones that I've had the most success with. All right, so moving on to level 4, this is where we are going to start picking up our levels in Wizard. So we're going to go Wizard, and in terms of race, I forgot to mention this earlier, but in terms of race, you can go whatever race you want. I personally think the best race to go for this build is the High Half Elf. And the reason why is because you do get that free cantrip at the beginning, so that does give you a little bit of your spell casting just right at the beginning as you're getting your first 3 levels in the fighter. In terms of that cantrip, it can be whatever you want. My 2 favorite ones to pick, especially depending on the situation I'm going to find myself in, is going to be either Firebolt or Shocking Grasp. And if you don't have a character in your party that has friends, I would highly recommend you take friends, because getting that advantage on charisma checks and being able to add that helps a lot with like things outside of combat. However, if you do have that, then your third one can be really whatever you want, whichever one of these that you feel like you need. So in terms of spells, now that we're level 4, the main spells, I'm just going to take all of these off, but the main spells that I want to focus on is going to be Shield. Shield is your best spell, especially in the early game, but this is what you're going to be using most of your spell slots on. And the reason why is because Shield is pretty cornerstone to making this build work. So this is when you're about to be hit by an enemy, you increase your armor class by 5, and you take no damage from magic missile, which is also a nice benefit. But the main thing is increasing that armor class by 5. And why that is so important is because, like I said before, we are an AC tank. We are like, you know, like a battle mage, and we're in there, we're in melee combat, and we have access to spells, but we want to focus on having our AC as high as possible. So shield is huge, and you will use this a lot because this really helps in making sure that you do not get hit and you can avoid as much damage as possible. So the next spell that I like to take personally is I do like to take Thunder Wave, and because you're going to be in melee combat a lot, sometimes you are going to get surrounded, so it is nice to have an AoE option. So I like taking Thunder Wave. You can also take Burning Hands if you want, but what I really like about Thunder Wave is it also offers utility. Like for example, if you're fighting on a cliff, then you can push enemies away, and you can sometimes just instant KO certain enemies by knocking them off like a tall enough cliff. This also helps, like if you're getting really surrounded, then this helps get things away from you, so you can either like reposition and not provoke attacks of opportunity, as well as just again having a really nice solid AoE damage option for that close melee combat. So I really do like Thunder Wave, and I do think that especially in the early levels it tends to help out quite a bit. All right, for our next spell we are going to take a range option. We're going to take Chromatic Orb. Chromatic Orb, in my opinion, is just the straight up best like level 1 range spell in the game. It has so many different options. It has a lot of utility because of the fact that you can choose really different effects depending on what you want. So the default one is Thunder, and it doesn't leave like a pool of anything on the ground like the other ones do, but it does have an extra die on top of it, so it is like the highest damage if you just need like that nuke potential. But then there's also like acid, fire, whatever, so it does help with utility as well as setting up other things. So this is just nice to have if you need like a long range spell to do a good amount of damage. Then Chromatic Orb is there for you, especially if you can't get into melee combat or you just need to pick off an enemy from a distance. All right, so next one is going to be Enhanced Leap, and I will put it up on the screen, but like tripling your jump distance is absolutely insane. So when you triple your jump distance, especially with the class that wants to get into melee combat, then this really helps you get in the enemy's faces and just do an insane amount of things. So I love Enhanced Leap, and a lot of people don't really talk about it. I think personally it's super underrated, and I really like it and find a lot of success with it. Now, in terms of your last two spells, they can really be whatever you want. Prepared spells, these are going to be at this level, the prepared spells that I would personally go with: Shield always, and then Thunder Wave for, like I said, like that utility, and because you're going to be in melee combat a lot, it's nice to have that AoE damaging spell, and as well as like being able to push enemies. It's a lot of utility and it's a lot of fun to use, honestly. And then I would take Chromatic Orb just so you do have that range option as well. All right, and really quick before we continue with the video, if you are enjoying this video, then I would just like to invite you to hit the like button if you are enjoying the video, like I said. And if you want to see more Baldur's Gate 3 builds and other guides, then make sure to hit the subscribe button as well and hit that bell. All right, so moving on to level 5, we are going to take again another point in Wizard, because we're just going to go Wizard for the rest of the levels. And the one that I would go personally is going to be Evocation. Now, you can go some of the other classes. You can have fun with like Necromancy, or even like a Divination Wizard's always really good, enchantment, whatever. But I personally prefer Evocation. One, it's a really easy subclass to use. The Evocation class ability of Sculpt Spells, what this does is that you create pockets of safety within your Evocation spells, so allies automatically succeed their saving throws against these spells and take no damage from them, which is really nice because it's just something that you don't have to worry about. You do not have to worry about damaging your allies with your spells. So if you are using any AoE spells like Thunderwave, for example, and you have another ally in melee combat, then you don't have to worry about hitting them. So I really like that because it just takes one more thing out of combat that you do not have to focus on. You do not have to worry about hurting your allies, especially when you get layer levels and you want to drop a giant fireball. You don't have to worry about hitting your allies with your spells. So I like Evocation personally. However, you can go whatever else that you want, or if you do prefer any one of these other ones, but for me personally, for this build, I'm going to take Evocation. And then you get to pick 2 more spells. These spells can be whatever you want to be at this point. Again, these are just like whatever you want. It's personal preference because again, like you only have 4 prepared spell slots. So at this point, the next spell that I would take in this build is going to be that Enhanced Leap. Again, you can take whatever you want. I prefer the Enhanced Leap because this is going to help us achieve what we want to do, which is get into that melee combat and just really start going to town. So Enhanced Leap does help with that. And as you saw from the little clip that I put on the screen, Enhanced Leap can really send you flying into combat with no issue whatsoever, and it's so much fun to use. Plus also has some exploration utility. All right, so we are now level 6, which means we are 3 levels in Fire, 3 levels in Wizard. And what you're going to do is you're just going to get a little bit more health, and then you're going to get level 2 spells, which is huge, as well as another level 1 spell slot. So this is where you're going to be able to pick your level 2 spells and there is a couple that I want to shout out. The one that I want to shout out first is Mirror Image, and again, sticking with our theme of having a really high AC, Mirror Image is really dope because what it does is you create 3 illusionary duplicates of yourself that distract enemy attackers, and each duplicate increases your armor class by 3. So when you use this, you are going to be damn near impossible to hit. Now, another one that's in the same vein, and you can take this one too, but Blur, attackers have disadvantage on attack rolls against you. This is also really good. You can pick between which ones that you want. The only thing about this one, about Blur over Mirror Image, is Blur's concentration. So if there's another spell that you want to concentrate on, then you can't have them both going at the same time. But on the bright side, if you do maintain concentration, Blur lasts more than 3 hits, which is the downside of Mirror Image. So you can pick which one you want, which one you prefer. If you have another spell that you know you're going to want to concentrate on, then go Mirror Image. On the flip side, if you don't really have another spell that you want to concentrate on, then you can go Blur and be just fine. And the other second level spell that I would take at this point in time is Misty Step, and what Misty Step does is it's a teleport. You can teleport up to 60 feet, and it takes a bonus action, which is really nice. This helps us get into combat, and this is also really nice because what you can do is you can now take out your Enhanced Leap and you can replace it with Misty Step. So I would replace Enhanced Leap with Misty Step personally, but again, if you want both, you can have both, but it seems a little redundant. And then I would take out Grease or whatever other spell, and then I would put that Mirror Image in as well, so that way you can, or Blur, so that way you can really start just protecting yourself in the front lines and making you damn near impossible to kill. All right, so moving on to level 7, we are now Wizard level 4, and this is super important because not only do we get another cantrip, we get more spells, but we also get a feat. So cantrips, again, you can take whatever you want here, it doesn't really matter. Now you get to pick 2 more spells, and the spells that I would like to shout out from that you can take, and again, these aren't too important because even though you'll have a lot of spell slots and a lot of options for spells, most of your spell slots, like I said before, will be used for more of the defense, like shield and stuff. So I like Flaming Spear. This is what I like to concentrate on personally in this build. All right, and then the other spell that I do want to shout out here is Blindness. I do like Blindness because you limit a foe's sight range and it makes it easier to hit them, and the creature will miss more often. And then in terms of your prepared spells, you can go ahead and swap these around as you see fit. This is what I would do personally, and then you have like these other options if you do want to prepare different spells, but this is personally the spells that I would have set up. Now, in terms of feat, there's a couple different feats that you can take here. Personally, for the first time that you are going to get a feat, I like the ability score improvement because I do like bumping our dex and our up to that next level. I'm going to take the ability score improvement. And so what we do here is we just put 1 into our dexterity, so that way we get to the next level of dexterity, as well as intelligence, so that way we have an increase on that. So right now, as you can see, since we're bumping intelligence up to 16, now we have a +3. Before we had a +2, so that helps with that. And then dexterity goes to a +4 from a +3, so both of those I think are really nice. All right, so now we are level 8 and we are Wizard level 5, and then of course again only those 3 levels in Fighter. And in this you get level 3 spell slots, which is really nice, and then you gain 2 spells. So level 3 spells are absolutely insane in Baldur's Gate, and there is a lot of good options here, but I'm going to point out a few that I really like. All right, so the best 3rd level spell that I really like taking for this build specifically actually isn't Fireball, contrary to popular belief and what most people would be thinking, but I actually really like Haste here. Haste is super nice for melee combat because what you do is you target yourself or an ally if you want to, but you're going to be targeting yourself with this build to become hastened, and what you do is you gain an action, you become faster, and you become harder to hit. Now, when the condition does end, you do become lethargic. What this does is you can't move or take actions, bonus actions, or reactions, and I believe that this lasts for 1 turn. You can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but for 1 turn, you basically won't be able to do anything, so that's kind of the downside, and it is a concentration, so you can be broken out of it. But the benefits that you get, especially because we do, as a fighter, we do have Constitution saving throw proficiency, it shouldn't be too hard, and with your incredibly high AC, it shouldn't be too hard to maintain your concentration. And then another one is Fireball. I'm going to shout out Fireball because of the fact that Fireball. Fireball is just a giant nuke, and sometimes you just need to nuke enemies or to start combat. Like if you're walking up on a combat encounter, then you can just start off by throwing a fireball in there and killing like half the enemies. So Fireball is absolutely insane. Everyone knows Fireball is insane. And then when we go to our prepared spells, we are going to take out Flaming Spear, and we are going to put in Haste, and then we can take out Burning Hands or whatever else you had there, and you can put in Fireball. All right, so moving on to level 9, we are going to get another level 3 spell slot, which is super nice. But then we also get the subclass feature Potent Cantrip. So what this does, your cantrips become hard to evade entirely. When a creature succeeds at saving throw against one of your cantrips, it still takes half the cantrip's damage, but suffers no additional effects. In terms of spells here, honestly, you can take whatever you want at this point. Like, you have like your core spells really that you're going to be using. So I won't go over this too much. You can really pick just whatever suits your build or whatever else that you are trying to do. Once we get to level 10 and we are wizard level 7, this is just going to give you access to level 4 spells, which is a huge boost in power, because level 4 spells are really powerful. And then you're also going to have more prepared spells. So 4 spells for this build, personally the one that I would take, and the most important one in my opinion for this build in particular, is Fire Shield. Fire Shield is really awesome, because what this does is you wreath your body in flames, shed light into a 10-foot radius, which is nice, but you do get resistance to fire or cold damage, and it does retaliate against melee attack. So Fire Shield is really good. And then the other 4th level spell that I would shout out is Greater Invisibility. This is a concentration spell, but one of the things that this does is, unlike regular invisibility, you can attack and take actions with this, and it won't break your invisibility. Those are the 2 that I would like to shout out, and the 2 that I think are the best ones to take. All right, level 11, we are almost done. You get more access to your 4th level spell. Here you can take really whatever you want, and then you get another feat or ability score improvement. So you can improve your ability scores and get 1 up to 20 if you want to get that +5. However, what I would personally do is I would either take Defensive Duelist, or I would take Forecaster to gain advantage on saving throws to maintain our concentration on a spell, so that way we don't lose our concentration, because we do have a couple spells that we do like to concentrate on that are really good. So you can take whatever you want, so whichever one you want to pick, you can go ahead and pick. All right, and now in terms of level 12, my character is only level 11, so I can't show you in game level 12. However, there is not really much to cover in level 12 for this build. The main thing you're going to do is we're on the wiki right now, so once you hit level 12, you're going to be a level 9 wizard, and what that's going to do is obviously it's going to give you another level 4 spell slot, which is nice because that means more haste and everything, but you're going to get 1 level 5 spell slot. And if we go down to the level 5 spells, personally, because our build is focused on like melee combat, what I like to take is I like to take Cone of Cold. This is basically like super burning hands, but you're using ice instead of fire. So you make a flurry of frost, crisp air, and condensed snow crystals erupt from your hands. So very similar to burning hands, but instead you are doing cold damage, and it's a lot higher, because you can see it's 8d8 damage. So that's like the level 5 spell that I would personally take. All right, and that is the build. So just to recap everything that we went over with this build, you are going to have an incredibly high AC, especially if you're wielding a shield. It's going to be at least 21, which is really nice, and it's going to be really hard to hit you. You're going to have a lot of damage between your maneuvers as well as your spells. Whether you're in range or melee combat, you will have a lot of options, and you'll be outputting an insane amount of damage per turn. And with that, you do have a lot of versatility with this build, even though you are primarily focused on melee combat. If you can't get into melee combat for whatever reason, you still have access to things like Fireball, as well as a couple other spells to help you with range combat as well. And finally, I think one of the things that we really did succeed with this build is fulfilling that Battle Mage or Spellblade type fill, as well as staying true to a Bladesinger fantasy as much as we possibly could in Baldur's Gate 3. So that is the build. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know if there's any other specific builds that you want me to cover down in the comment section down below, and I will see you in the next one.